On this video, I'm joined by a very special guest, Jessica Meredith from Differing Minds, to talk about neurodiversity in the workplace and workplace inclusions for autistic people. Let's go. Welcome, my friend. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Orion Kelly, that autistic guy. I'm all about helping you raise your level of understanding, acceptance, and appreciation of the autistic community. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, please click the subscribe button. The most important thing, though, is by doing that, you are joining this most amazing YouTube community. I'm super excited to welcome our guest for this video, Jessica Meredith from Differing Minds, doing some incredible stuff in the workplace inclusion space, but also in the neurodiversity space. Just some amazing work. Jessica is the CEO of Differing Minds, so we're very lucky to have her. Jess, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's great to chat. Now, what I wanted to do this chat for was I stumbled on you on LinkedIn. As soon as I saw it, I thought, this is my people, this is my thing. I love what you're doing with Differing Minds. So, all right, let's start at the start. Could you just tell us a bit about you and about what you do at Differing Minds?
Of course. So I have been on quite the journey over the last 5 years, I would say. In the UK, I grew up and live in Brighton, which I don't know if you know much about it, but it's a very diverse and inclusive place comparatively to a lot of other places. So that was always quite normal to me. And so then when I kind of got older and I started working, I realised that it wasn't necessarily the same at work. So I'd always done some work around inclusion, really important to me. But this was broad inclusion and mostly looked at things like gender, because that was the discrimination that I was facing. And then 5 years ago, I had my first child, and she obviously is the most amazing thing in the world, and turns out she's autistic. So I have been on quite the personal journey to understand more about her, and that led me to understand more about me. And I was diagnosed with ADHD this year. I have done everything I possibly can to learn about neurodiversity, and I have completely reframed my own thinking, because I had all of the kind of stereotypes and negativity surrounding particularly autism that we grow up with and that we learn from the media and things like that. So I decided I wanted to do something about it. I also realised that in all of the inclusion work that I'd been doing in organisations previously, neurodiversity hadn't really been mentioned. I'd never heard it talked about. I mean, disability was talked about a little bit, but very little compared to gender and race and potentially LGBTQ+. So I set up Differing Minds to start talking about it in organisations and to try and make organisations more neuro-inclusive and just more aware of what a great thing neurodiversity can be.
I can't wait to talk more about Differing Minds, but before we get there, just I guess on a broader general question, because I mentioned just before when we were just catching up that I was lucky enough to do a chat, an address, whatever you want to call it, for some governmental departments, so thousands of government officers and public servants about neurodiversity, and it was kind of like they knew one language and I knew the other, but I was doing the talk in my language. I guess my question is, why are the benefits of neurodiversity so fanciful and so hard to sell to employers? Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely know what you mean.
Because to me, it's just, it doesn't need to be sold. It's a win-win. But why is it in this day and age still so hard to sell?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It is utterly ridiculous, and I think it's having gone from a place where I was totally ignorant about all of this stuff. You know, it's reasonably recent for me to a place where I am now. I look back and I think over the years of me growing up and just kind of everything I was exposed to was a particular framing of not even neurodiversity at that time, because I didn't know what that time was, but let's talk about just in the context of autism. It was a particular framing, there was a particular kind of negativity that came with it, there was certain kind of connotations, and that is all that you are exposed to when medical professionals talk about it, what you see in the media. And I think when that's all you have, and if you don't have the personal connection to it, as in you're not autistic yourself, you don't have a close family member who is autistic or a close friend, that's all you see. So it's very hard, you're almost talking to people who have had actual lived experience or a personal connection versus people who have got the view that has been created without that experience, and they're really far apart. And it is hard for people who don't have that personal connection because they don't know. And so it is like talking two completely different languages. And it for us on the other side, we have a lot of work to do to get people over to where we are at, because we're dealing with unconscious bias and just learning through years and years and years of being exposed to, in my opinion, the wrong framing.
Yeah, and I've got a question about that, but this isn't a question, it's more like just to get your kind of response to that, what you've just said. As a result of that, I guess, pre-enlightenment, do you think it's fair to say that what I tend to hear as an autistic person, what we tend to hear is, you know what, there's thousands of neurotypical people out there that want your job. Why do I need to bother with all this extra fuss for you? There are literally thousands of non-autistic people out there that would take your job tomorrow. Do you agree that that is actually a day-to-day issue for people like me? Because, do you know what I mean? I'm just asking after a response.
I absolutely know what you mean, but I love the term pre-enlightenment, by the way. That's how I'm going to talk about the phases in my life from now on. Yeah, I hear it all the time. All the time. Because of what I do, I don't hear it quite in that way because people tend to tone it down a little bit, but that's essentially what they're saying. What they're really saying is, I am just going to prioritise something that is easier for me and the way that I know, rather than actually challenge myself to think what is fair. And, you know, we don't live in a fair society. One of the things actually we also work in schools. So we have developed a primary school lesson all about neurodiversity. So kids from the age of 8 can learn that all of our brains are different. That's a really good thing. But the core part of the lesson talks about the difference between things being equal and things being fair. And it's actually a lesson that is totally relevant to adults and organisations, because people think that equal is fair. And that's not true, because we're all coming from a different perspective. And when people say that exactly what you've just said to me, I tell the story back to them, but using a physical disability. And they're suddenly like, oh, gosh, I would never do that. I would never say to a wheelchair user, well, why would I give the job to you when that means I'm going to have to get a ramp outside or make things so that you can actually go up the stairs or, you know, get a lift. You wouldn't say that because it's really obvious to you that this person is equally valid as a human being, equally qualified, potentially could do a better job. But yet you can say that to an autistic person because you don't see what's inside their brain. And so you're thinking that they're asking for something over and above, whereas actually they're saying, just put me in a world and an environment that works for me, and I'm going to do as good a job, if not better, than the other people that you have in this candidate application process.
We're clearly on the same wavelength, because I literally said the same story to the public service. But what I did was I said, look at it like this, guys. If I'm a person who uses a wheelchair, it's just stock standard, a given that there'll be a ramp in your workplace for me. It would have been part of the architectural approval, right? It's just there. Okay. Well, look at it like this. It's like you saying to the dude who uses the wheelchair, congratulations, you've got the job, it's BYO ramp. And it's like, hang on.
Exactly.
What do you mean? What do you mean I'm going to bring my own ramp? And I guess that's what I was trying to convey to them. See, as a person with a neurological developmental difference, my ramps are up here. I went on to discuss, in fact, they're probably much less expensive and much easier to design than having to put them into your building. And I think, from your point of view, I refer to them as mind ramps for my kind of way of talking to people. You know, what are my mind ramps? How can you help me, enable me? But from your point of view, neuro-inclusion. So let's talk about this. Neuro-inclusion in the workplace. How do you explain it? Just assume that, you know, people watching, other people that you're presenting to. How do you explain neuro-inclusion in the workplace as like an umbrella term to employers?
We just say that it means that you are inclusive of every type of person when it comes to how they think, you know, their neurology and their perception of the world. And the beauty of neuro-inclusion is by doing some things that are actually free, very easy, simple things to do, you'll actually have broader inclusion benefits, because, you know, we know now, based on what we've seen, that changes that you can make to include autistic people, people with ADHD, people who are dyslexic, actually benefit everybody.
Win-win, absolute win-win.
Yeah. Exactly, and it's about creating an environment that is inclusive of everybody, rather than making changes and putting people kind of in a separate box. And one of the things that I sometimes talk about when I'm talking about neuro-inclusion is autism at work programs. So autism at work programs, don't get me wrong, have benefits for some people. Some people have had a great experience in them. At Differing Minds, it's not something that we do, it's not something that we advocate for, because what I want to see is organisations become environments where everybody can thrive, and that you have neurodiverse teams. It's not about creating specific areas of work or specific teams or specific parts of the building that autistic people can go and operate in. It's about creating an environment where they're comfortable wherever they are.
And that's, so important to not only hear, because it makes me, it comforts me, obviously, but it's so important for other people to hear, because number one, honestly, most mind ramps, most, inclusions, reasonable adjustments, as you would put it, for, neurodivergent people, they're bloody free. And what I try to tell the government are, not only are they free, but in fact, instead of things, guess what they are? They're people. That's it. It's instead of telling me to bring noise cancelling headphones, maybe just tell Jim on the desk across from me to catch up with me. We'll have a chat. He'll understand the way I interact could be a little bit gruff or matter of fact or black and white. But why? Okay, because my brain is actually bigger in the logical side than the emotional side, and I see things in right and wrong, black and white ways. And if Jim understands that, Jim's not going to get offended anymore. He'll probably find it really refreshing and maybe humorous, like my wife. And therefore, me and Jim now are both enjoying work better. He's looking forward to hanging out with me. I'm looking forward to being there because he understands me and I won't get reported to HR for being me. And you just want to see, like, this is humorous, but it's actually the legit thing. It's free. And I try to explain in my chats that what I really need are people adjustments, not light switches that I can turn down or the radio on the roof or whatever it is. And I don't know why, but those kind of standard practices, those kind of neurotypical focused, HR ideas and adjustments, they actually make it even more difficult, not only to get a job, because you've got to go through the resume and the interviews and all those kind of things, but to keep it, and keeping it is so hard. And I guess it's because we're reliant on knowledge and understanding of other employees, but right, so not me, but if I'm reliant, if my keeping the job or even getting the job is reliant on knowledge and understanding of managers and employers and co-workers, well, how is that going to work if we just don't address it, if we just don't go any further?
Oh, exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
I totally know what you mean.
But why isn't it addressed, though, Jessica? Why isn't this not addressed?
We're getting there. We are at the start of, I think, a big shift. Really at the start. It's going to take a long, long time. And it pains me that we've taken such a long time to get here. But just speaking again about my pre-enlightenment, I wasn't advocating for this, and I claimed to be really inclusive. I was a huge inclusion advocate, and I was, banging the drum in every organisation I worked for. As a side project, I was always working on inclusion, but I just wasn't looking at this. And I think it's because, there are some other areas of diversity that are just more visible. They're obvious. I'm openly a woman, I'm a woman at work, and so the discrimination I face is kind of more obvious. It's hard to disappear from that. You have people of colour who they can't disguise the fact that they are of colour, and so it's easier for people to still we're not getting that right, let's just be clear, but it's easier for people to engage with it because it's more obvious. Whereas when it's a something that is happening within you, and also typically those people, because of the negativity, don't want to often advocate for themselves. They'd rather just keep it really quiet and just deal with what they're dealing with at work and burn out and then leave, than they would actually say, this is my situation, please can we do something about it? They also will have had negative experiences in the past. They will have had people say things, whether they are trying to be negative or just accidentally saying things like, don't worry, we're all a little bit autistic. People just don't know. So they will have had all these experiences. So I think often people just haven't, as a group, the neurodivergent community we are now, I think, within this movement, but historically we haven't been there and haven't been able, I didn't even know. When I set up Differing Minds, I thought I was a neurotypical person advocating for neurodivergent people. Turns out I'm actually neurodivergent myself. So we've got all of that going on as well. So there's just such a change, and I think that's why we haven't been able to get to this point yet.
And you know what? I mentioned in other videos I've done on my channel about there was a report tabled earlier in 2022 by the Senate in Australia on the lives of autistic people and outcomes. And look, there's many stats, and the one I'll talk about that's relevant to us, and there's so many other ones that are relevant, like a 20-year life expectancy lesser than any other person. It was 8 times higher unemployment rate. Okay, so autistic people are unemployed 8 times more than any other person, be that disabled or not disabled, whatever, however you want to put it. It's not looking good for us. It clearly comes down to an idea of feeling supported and feeling like you are enabled to thrive in the workplace, and that not being something that I would be able to talk to you that I've experienced, or that it's something I understand or is a given. It's not something that's normal, right? And your work is very much about helping with reasonable adjustments. I know there was a document I saw that caught my eye. You put up on LinkedIn a while back. It was like 20 reasonable adjustments, and it was a great document. But we're not go and check it out on LinkedIn and on your website. But from your point of view, you know this is just a reality. So as a starting point, what are the kind of things that you are, in general terms, trying to address, trying to achieve in workplaces, with these types of reasonable adjustments, just in general terms?
One of the first things I always say to organisations that you want to do is start talking about neurodiversity. You want to create an environment where people understand what it is, that people feel safe to talk about it. So that is often the feedback we get from organisations when we do talks. Oh, it's great because you've now created a safe environment for people to start talking about this whenever they're ready. So this isn't about encouraging disclosure. This is about just encouraging an environment where if people want to share, they can. And if you don't have people that come into your organisation and talk about that, you're not going to create an environment where people are happy to. And that's particularly important, I would say, for autistic people, because typically, not always, they are going to be less likely to want to be open about this type of stuff compared to other neurodivergent people. But alongside that, you can't just have someone that comes in and does a talk. Then you've ticked that box, we've opened up the conversation about neurodiversity, and then that's it. You need to have some things in place where people then, if someone does share, you need a manager to know what they can do. You need a manager to know that they shouldn't say, oh, don't worry, you're fine. Oh, I would never have known you're autistic. Or, some of those things that they can, coming from a good place, but are the wrong things to say. They need some really simple steps that say, open up the conversation in a positive way and say, okay, great, let's have a chat about it. What are your strengths? What do you find more challenging? Make it strengths-based. And I think just facilitating that open conversation for me is like number one thing that you should do. A lot of people want to start with the recruitment process and how can we better attract neurodivergent talent, and that is absolutely important. And ideally I would say do both. Look internally and look at your recruitment process. But if you're going to do one, my personal perspective is focus on the people that you've got in your organisation first, because you don't want to recruit more neurodivergent people into an organisation that isn't going to support them when they're there. And you will have people that are burning out, that are not performing at their best, that are, just not thriving. So you want to focus on that. And to your point before, we have obviously the similar stats in the UK. So the most recent one that was done a couple of years ago said that 16% of autistic people were in full-time employment. And that is staggeringly low. I mean, crazy. We have to be realistic. Not all autistic people can be in full-time work, want to be in full-time work, but it's not 84% of them. So we have such a long way to go, and I have to try and balance. There's a lot to do to make your organisation neuro-inclusive. There's kind of systemic change. You want to make sure your process is correct. You want everybody to understand what neurodiversity is. There's a kind of cultural aspect to it. But at the same time, there are some really simple things that you can do, such as what you said, and we've talked about throughout, that are free. They're literally free. Just get people to understand about it as a basic step. Clearer communication. Your point about, direct communication. I have a friend has a little girl who, I think she's 8, and she has an autistic boy in her class. And she got really upset one day. She came home and she said, oh, I asked, can't remember what this little boy's name is, if he liked my picture. And he said no. And she was mortified. And then we were trying to explain, but he wasn't being horrible. You asked him a question and he gave you an honest answer. So we could get him to change his method of communication and for him to understand that maybe it's a bit kinder sometimes to either tell a white lie or to just position it slightly differently. Or you could know that you have to be ready for an honest answer if you're going to ask someone that question. So there's probably work to do on both sides. But what has happened in the past, historically, is that all the work has been done by the autistic people, or haven't, and so therefore then they're cast aside. And as neurotypical people just often haven't understood that they need to meet in the middle, and if not meet further onto the autistic side of things.
As a dad, being autistic myself and having an 8-year-old autistic son, I totally get that, navigating how I can help my son. And then sometimes I think, stuff them, like not this little girl, but, for seriously,
My son is 8. He's been masking probably since he was 5. So here's a kid who's suppressing his true self from like 4 or 5. How do you think that's going to go for him in long-term life and mental health? And now we're trying to get him to come up with ways of responding better when all he's doing in his mind is being kind through being honest and answering a question. I don't know why, but my wife appreciates my fashion advice. God knows why. At least she knows it's honest. Right. I don't get the whole, she looks good in that if she doesn't. No, that doesn't flatter you. This works better kind of thing. And it's a real challenge. But this is the last thing I want to talk about, because it really is about reactions, impressions, judgments, acceptance. These obstacles that are all born out of people and out of pre-enlightened people, not bad people, good people. I don't know a thing about most other disabilities, right? We're no different. We're just people. We just want to have a good life. So there's nothing wrong with these people. We need to enlighten them if they'd like to be. And HR policies and the idea of professionalism and how we can address these, in my opinion, it might not be yours, in my opinion, I think there's a lot of work to be done with regards to, for example, if I said to an organisation, could I see your HR policy for neurodivergent employees or autistic employees, they'd kind of laugh at me or think, sorry, is he making a joke? Is this humour? Yeah. Is this autistic humour? He's being autistic again. It's like, no, it's a serious question. But don't you think it is actually a serious question? But they don't exist. That's the answer. And also they're drafted by neurotypical people via neurotypical standards of how a neurotypical brain should work. Well, how can my son, your daughter, be? How can we do that? Because our brain doesn't allow it. It's not possible. It's like saying the standard is you have to walk into work, but I'm in a wheelchair. But the standard is you have to walk into work, but I'm in a wheelchair. It goes around in circles. And my big rant at the moment, my theory, Jess, at the moment is a professional manner or professionalism is a farce. It's a made-up phrase that doesn't exist. You can't. So what's a professional manner? Well, it's acting professional. Okay, what's acting professional? It's being in a professional manner. How? Please react to that and tell me I'm crazy. But in addition to that, how do we make ground in this, which is really people-based? HR is people-based. Do you know what I mean? This whole idea of a professional manner in the workplace, because you tell me an autistic person that hasn't been fired because of HR strikes that were pure legalised discrimination, and I'll say you're lying. It just, what do you think? How can we go forward here?
I know, I mean, I totally agree. The whole kind of concept just doesn't make any sense to me. I find it, it's interesting. Slight side note, when I was having my ADHD assessment, the psychiatrist who was doing it at the end said, do what you will with this information, but you actually score very highly on kind of autism traits too. So he recommended an autism assessment. I'm kind of sitting on that at the moment, but don't really know what to do with it. But I think there are certain aspects of my personality, or not personality, the way I'm wired, that think quite literally and in a kind of direct way. So a lot of what you say I really resonate with, and I struggle to know kind of where I'm at in terms of side of the fence, for want of a better phrase. But within this, when you're talking about professionalism, I've always had this issue that I just don't understand what people really mean, because really when we're at work we should just be doing a really good job. And if we're doing a really good job, I'm just not really sure, unless we're going around, kind of completely offending absolutely everybody we talk to because we are being rude. Because, autistic people, ADHD people, neurodivergent people can be rude too. We're not saints, but I think it's understanding what's actually coming from a bad place and intentionally harmful versus just a different method of communication. And so when you think about professionalism, I've always had it about in terms of things to wear. I've never really kind of gone down the corporate route in terms of workwear, things like that, because it's meaningless to how I do my job. And so that's the same as how we've just kind of made up professionalism. Professional to me, like I said, is just doing a good job, at peace with everybody, and being happy in yourself at work. I don't think we should ever force people to work in a particular way and to a particular standard which isn't impacting on how they're doing their job.
Yeah, and don't you think if we say the values of respect, being respectful and kindness are more important than professionalism, and you and I are honest and upfront with someone who we really like, but it might not be something they want to hear because we're being kind and trying to help them, don't you think we're being professional rather than I'm going to HR and dobbing on you because you offended me? And I think this is...
Absolutely.
Your daughter, my son, you, me... honesty is kindness. It's
really
just
is.
the brain. It's the logical brain and the tiny little emotional side. If I don't like you, you ain't getting honesty. You ain't getting nothing. If you're getting energy from me, I like you. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. I mean, people people should appreciate it, and I think that is so true, because it's actually much easier for some people, neurotypical people, to not give a candid response and not, face into, for them, would be a difficult conversation, but that doesn't get you anywhere. Like, you have to have honest conversations, and you have to know where you stand. I mean, just goes way beyond work. Exactly like you said, if you like someone, if you have a good relationship with someone, then that's how you would be. And actually, if you're going to be, it's not dishonest, but just not really being overtly honest, that probably means you haven't got time for that person and you just don't really want to even engage with it. So actually it's a good thing. And I think we don't want to go around offending people, but at the same time, you can't operate in a work environment and have a good working relationship with someone if you're not going to be direct. And it's something that we talk about a lot at board level, for example. Imagine the efficiencies that you could achieve on a board if you just got to the point, people were honest about how they were feeling, and you didn't feel like you had to take into account kind of lots of all of this other, dynamic tension and, all of this neurotypical stuff that a lot of us just don't understand.
Political factions. And I think board level, we're finishing now, we've got to go, but board levels is a phenomenal topic to talk about another time. Autistic people, neurodivergent people on board levels, but also I'd love to talk to boards. I'd rather talk to boards than talk to 3,000 staff, because I think I could do more damage in a good way. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the last thing I would just want to throw out there from what you just said, it just triggered me. Do you think it was me, or do you think it was neurotypical people that invented the phrase "honesty is the best policy"? Because last time I checked, they actually don't believe that. It's like, hang on a second, you made the policy. And I've done it, and now I'm fired. It's like, whose policy was
But that is literally the problem, isn't it? That is people don't think about what they actually mean. They think
I'm
that's a
following
great
the
thing
rules
to say,
here, people.
They don't want it. Exactly. Only make the rules if you want people to follow them.
Amazing work at Differing Minds, and great to talk to you, Jess. Hopefully we can do it again soon. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, I would love to. Thanks so much for having me.
What a guest, the CEO of Differing Minds, Jessica Meredith. Thanks again, Jess. I appreciate your time watching this video. Now, if it's resonated with you, then you should share it with your family and friends so we can hopefully reach more people. I really do appreciate your support. Until my next video, thank you for watching, and we'll talk soon.